Rai knew he should go to bed, but instead clicked on another story about a cheating wife. Were these stories real? Could people really do such things to someone they loved? The stories burrowed into Rai's mind, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion. He began watching his wife, Pamela, more closely, analyzing her every move and interaction. When they went out dancing, he would tense up if she got too close to other men. He searched through laundry baskets, looking for signs of betrayal. Rai had met his wife at her sister C's wedding. Little did he know that the couple getting married were swingers. Rai and Pamela hit it off immediately and got married just a year later. Kyle came along the next year, followed by Kayla 2 years after that. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect little family, but Rai and Pamela's opposite work shifts meant they barely saw each other. Then there were Sandy and her husband Bob, wild party animals rumored to be swingers. Rai had never liked Bob, especially after catching him flirting with Pamela at their own wedding reception. He and Pamela had agreed never to discuss past relationships, as they were both the jealous type. One day Pamela asked if Rai could fix C's leaky kitchen sink. "Sure, I can take a look," Rai replied with a smirk. "Maybe I can do some plumbing while I'm there." Pamela's eyes flashed. "Don't even think about it, mister. That's my sister you're talking about." Rai held up his hands in mock surrender. "Relax. I'm just kidding," but as he headed out the door, he couldn't help but wonder about Sandy and Bob's rumored antics. Sandy had always been a shameless flirt, even with Rai, but he knew better than to risk his marriage over a fling with his sister-in-law, didn't he? When Rai arrived at Sai's house, she greeted him at the door wearing nothing but a flimsy bathrobe. "Come on in," she purred. "Coffee's on if you want some." Rai's mouth went dry. "Ah, thanks, I'll just take a look at that sink in the kitchen." Rai bent down to inspect the pipes under the sink. When he stood up, Sandy was right behind him, her robe hanging open. "What are you doing?" Sandy, Rai stammered, backing away. "What does it look like?" Sandy replied, advancing on him. "I want you, Rai. I always have. Stop it. I'm just here to fix the sink. This isn't right." Sandy's eyes narrowed. "Are you going to sleep with me or not?" "No, absolutely not. Pamela's your sister, for Christ's sake. I love her." "Fine," Sandy spat. "Have it your way, but if you don't give me what I want, I'll tell Pamela you tried to force yourself on me. Who do you think she'll believe?" Rai bolted from the house. He tried calling Pamela, but she didn't answer. At work that night he could hardly focus, his thoughts consumed by Sandy's threat and what it could mean for his marriage. When Rai got home the next morning, C's car was in the driveway. Inside, he found Bob hastily pulling up his pants, Sandy smirking from the couch, and Pamela looking scared and very drunk. "What the hell is going on here?" Rai roared. He lunged at Bob, fists flying. In the chaos that followed, someone hit Rai from behind, and everything went black. Rai woke up in the hospital with a pounding headache. A police officer stood by his bed, explaining that Rai had a concussion from being hit with a vase. Apparently charges against Rai had been dropped. Bob claimed self-defense, saying Rai had come home in a rage and attacked him. Pamela remembered little, just Rai yelling. The whole situation was a mess, far from what Rai had expected when he'd left for Sai's that morning. "I have nothing to say," Rai told the officer. "You're lucky, Mr. Harper," the cop replied. "No charges filed, but I suggest you think long and hard about your actions." After the officer left, Rai's head throbbed, both from the injury and trying to make sense of what had happened. He couldn't live with a cheater, but he needed answers. He called his sister Amy to come pick him up, and just then his phone rang. It was Pamela. "Do you want me to come get you? We need to talk now that we're even." Ray's blood boiled. "Even? You slept with Bob?" "Amy's coming to get me. I'll grab my stuff and leave." "Leave?" Pamela cried. "Ray, I was just getting even for what you did with Sandy at home." Ray confronted Pamela. "Sandy told me you forced yourself on her," Pamela said accusingly. "That's a lie," Ray shot back. "She came on to me and threatened to lie if I didn't sleep with her. I left immediately." Pamela's eyes flashed with anger and hurt. "Why should I believe you? Why would my own sister lie about that?" "Because she's jealous," Ray exclaimed. "She and Bob are swingers. They wanted to get you involved. You let Bob have you, and as far as I'm concerned, our marriage is over." "No, I only did it to get even," Pamela protested. "Sandy knew details about what happened between you two." Ray's face twisted in disgust. "Your sister's nothing but trouble. I slept with her back in high school, just like half the guys in town, but that was years ago, before I even met you." Pamela's eyes welled with tears. I don't know what to believe anymore. This isn't just about Bob," Ray said coldly. "It's about trust. If I'd really raped Sandy, why didn't she go to the police? Face it, Pamela, you wanted Bob, and you used me as an excuse." "No, Ray. I love you," Pamela sobbed. "Love doesn't include sleeping with other people," Ray spat. "I'm filing for divorce on Monday. Wait, this isn't how it was supposed to happen." Ray ignored her pleas as he packed a suitcase. "Tell the kids whatever you want. I don't want to see or speak to you." Amy can arrange visits with Kyle and Kayla. The weeks that followed were a blur of overtime shifts and cheap motels as Ray tried to get his life back on track. He met with a lawyer and filed for divorce. One day, Ray picked up a sick Kyle from school. While at the house getting some of Kyle's things, the phone rang. It was Sandy. Ray hit record on his cell phone, capturing Sandy's confession that she had lied about the assault and revealing Bob's involvement in the whole scheme. After Ray left with Kyle, his phone exploded with calls and texts from Pamela, apologizing profusely and begging for forgiveness. But for Ray, it was too late. Her willingness to believe the worst about him and to throw away their marriage so easily had irreparably damaged his trust. On the day the divorce was to be finalized, Ray signed the papers with a heavy heart. Afterward, he headed to a nearby bar to drown his sorrows. By chance, he spotted Bob across the room. All the anger and pain of the past months came rushing back. Ray unleashed his fury, beating Bob until he was a crumpled mess on the floor. "I hope you rot in hell, you son of a," Ray shouted as three guys yanked him off Bob. He thrashed wildly as they dragged him outside, where police officers slammed him to the ground and cuffed him. This time, there would be no drop charges. Ray was headed to prison. With his one phone call, Ray contacted Amy. "I really screwed up this time, sis," he said wearily. "Don't bother with bail, I'm just going to do my time." He could hear Amy crying as he hung up the phone. Over the next 2 months, Pamela tried repeatedly to visit Ray in jail, but he refused to see her. When his court date arrived, Ray pled guilty to assault charges. The judge sentenced him to 2 years minus time served. "Ray, Pamela still loves you," Amy insisted when she visited. "Her whole family is furious about Sandy's lies, and Pamela never signed the final divorce papers." "You're going to jail." A married man prison was even worse than Ray had imagined. The first 2 months were a constant battle, landing him in the infirmary twice as he fought to prove himself. His cellmate was a lifer nicknamed Killer, rumored to have stabbed his unfaithful wife and her lover 80 times. He'd even killed another inmate the year before. But eventually, things settled into a tense routine. Killer even began talking to Ray, sharing stories about his own downfall. On visitor day, Ray was stunned to see Pamela waiting for him. "What are you doing here?" Ray asked. "I love you," Pamela sobbed, sliding photos of the kids across the table. "I made terrible mistakes, but I'll wait for you. We can get through this if you still love me." Ray stood up and walked away without saying a word, leaving Pamela crying at the visitor's window. That night, Ray overheard other inmates planning to attack Killer. Afraid of being labeled a snitch, Ray still felt he had to warn his cellmate. Killer eyed Ray suspiciously but took precautions. The next day, Killer outsmarted his would-be attacker by hiding books under his shirt, deflecting the makeshift knife. Killer's crew responded by savagely beating the attacker before guards stepped in. Through it all, Killer calmly finished his meal as if nothing had happened. After that incident, Killer and Ray developed an unlikely friendship. In the privacy of their cell, Killer revealed a softer side, asking about Pamela and the kids. He spoke wistfully of his own grown children who never visited, except for his youngest daughter, Anna. "She knows her mother was the one who destroyed our family," Killer confided. "She writes to me every week, but I won't let her visit. It's not safe here." Killer's face lit up with pride as he talked about Anna's budding law career. In return, Ray opened up about Sandy's betrayal and his conflicted feelings about Pamela. "Do you still love her?" Killer asked bluntly. Ray sighed. "Yeah, I do, but I hate what she did to our family." "Does she still love you?" "She says she does, but I don't know if I can ever forget." "Give her a chance," Killer said, fixing Ray with a piercing stare. "Why the hell not? Look around you. Kid, you've hit rock bottom. If a woman loved me enough to wait for me in a place like this, I'd be the happiest man alive. But what about the mistrust, the infidelity?" Killer let out a harsh laugh. "Hell, you killed for the same damn reason I did. Take it from me, don't hold on to grudges." "They'll kill you slowly." From the inside out, Killer's words stuck with Ray, forcing him to examine his own heart. What would he do when he got out? No job, no future, no family. The prospect was terrifying. A month later, Pamela visited again. "The kids miss you so much," she said. "Is there any chance we could be a family again?" "I'll do whatever it takes." Ray hesitated. "I want to forgive you, Pamela, but every time I close my eyes, I see you with Bob. I hated every second of it," Pamela insisted. "When I saw your face that night, I felt sick to my stomach." "I'd give anything to take it all back." Ray's resolve began to waver, but a few weeks later, Amy visited with troubling news. "I drove by the house yesterday," she reported. "I saw Sandy and Bob's cars in the driveway." Confusion and anger mixed in Ray's mind. Had Pamela been lying to him this whole time? Around this time, Killer offered to help with Ray's parole hearing, citing his past experience as a lawyer. Though skeptical, Ray respected the older man and decided to take him at his word. When Ray faced the parole board, they grilled him about his adjustment to prison life, his plans for housing, and his job prospects upon release. Ray answered as honestly as he could, mentioning his sister's offer of a place to stay and his former employer's willingness to rehire him. "What do you think your chances are of returning to prison?" one board member asked pointedly. "I never want to see the inside of these walls again." Ray promised as Ray returned to his cell. The killer asked how the hearing had gone. Ray shrugged, unsure of what lay ahead. "I told them what you suggested," Ray said. "Was that really you pulling strings to get me out early?" The killer chuckled. "You never know, kid. But if you do get sprung ahead of time, I'll be expecting that weekly pack of smokes on my commissary account." A few days later, Pamela came for another visit. "Someone from the parole board came by the house," she said nervously. "Are you getting out soon?" "What did they want?" Ray pressed. "What did you tell them?" "They were just checking how we're settling in, and if you'd be able to live there," Pamela explained. "I told them we're separated, but that I'd love to have you back home." Ray's eyes narrowed. "You told me you'd stop seeing Sandy. Is that true?" Pamela shifted uncomfortably. "She's still my sister, Ray. I don't see her much, but—" "And what about Bob?" Ray cut her off. "Seen him lately?" "Why are you asking me these questions?" "Because I can't trust a single word out of your mouth," Ray snapped. "You swore you were done with Sandy, but she and Bob were at the house. Did something happen with Bob again? Is that why you're so worried about me getting paroled?" "It's not like that, Ray. I can explain." "Save it," Ray snarled. "Tell your damn lover that when I get out, I'm going to finish what I started that night at the bar. And if you're messing around behind my back again, I'll deal with you too." Pamela fled from the visitor's room in tears. Ray's suspicions were confirmed. He was heading right back into the same mess that had landed him in prison in the first place. He didn't really want to kill anyone, but he'd be damned if he didn't scare them good and proper. That night, Ray called his sister, Amy, and asked her to visit as soon as possible. When she arrived the next day, he told her everything about his conversation with Pamela. Amy sighed. "Oh, Ray, I'm so sorry. I had no idea things were still so complicated with Pamela." Ray nodded grimly. "I need to know what's really going on. Can you keep an eye on the house, see who's coming and going?" Of course, Amy assured him. "I'll do whatever I can to help." As Amy was leaving, she paused. "By the way, the parole board contacted me too. They wanted to know if you could stay with us if you get out early." Ray's eyebrows shot up. "What did you tell them?" "That you're always welcome, of course. Kenny's on board too." "Thanks, sis. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Oh, and they also called Mr. Parker about your old job," Amy added. "Really? What did he say?" Amy smiled. "He said you can have your old position back. He said you were one of his best workers for the first time in months." Ray felt a glimmer of hope. "I appreciate everything, Amy. I just pray I don't get rejected." "You won't," Amy said confidently. "With housing and a job lined up, they told me you'll likely be out next month." Tears welled in Ray's eyes as he hugged his sister goodbye. True to Amy's prediction, Ray got the call a week later. He was being released the following week. Strangely, he was told to meet with a lawyer rather than a parole officer. Apparently, some high-powered law firm had arranged his early release. As Ray packed his few belongings, he thanked the killer profusely, promising to send those weekly cigarettes. He wasn't sure if the old man had really pulled any strings, but it seemed worth the gesture, either way. When Ray stepped outside the prison gates, Amy was waiting with tears in her eyes. They hugged tightly before heading to her house, where Kenny welcomed Ray warmly. "So what now?" Amy asked as they settled in the living room. Ray sighed. "I guess I need to call Pamela, arrange to see the kids. I promise I won't cause any trouble." When Ray called, Pamela agreed to let him visit but warned she'd call the cops at the first sign of trouble. Ray assured her he just wanted to see his children. The reunion with Kyle and Kayla was emotional, the kids running to Ray screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, you're back." He hugged them tightly, marveling at how much they'd grown. On the porch afterward, things were tense between Ray and Pamela. "What do you want, Ray?" she asked warily. "We're not a family anymore. I'm trying to move on with my life." "These are my kids too," Pamela Ray said firmly. "I want to be part of their lives." "I was ready to forgive you, but you lied to me again." Running back to Bob and Sandy, Pamela's eyes flashed. "Ray, you were in prison. I was lonely." "Save it," Ray cut her off. "I know you've been sleeping together. I don't care who you're with anymore, but if my kids are exposed to that lifestyle, I'll take them away from you, and that's not an empty threat. I would never do anything to hurt my children." "Right, you've already wrecked our family over Bob. I'm making sure my kids stay away from people like that. Tomorrow I'm seeing my lawyer about my rights as their father." Pamela's face crumpled. "Please, Ray, it's not what you think." But Ray was already walking away. He'd said his piece, now he had to focus on rebuilding his life and being there for his children. The next day, Ray went to the law offices that had handled his release. "I have an appointment with Mr. A.J. Brady," he told the receptionist. She smiled. "Miss Brady will be with you shortly." Ray frowned. Confused, the card had said A.J. A few minutes later, a stunning woman in a sharp blue suit approached. "Mr. Harper, I'm A.J. Brady," she said, extending her hand. "Please come into my office so we can discuss your situation." Ray followed her, captivated. Once they were seated, A.J. explained, "A mutual friend asked me to review your case. Your previous lawyer failed you badly. There were major extenuating circumstances that weren't considered." "Why me?" Ray asked. "Who hired you?" A.J.'s eyes sparkled with emotion. "My father, Dave. You might know him better as Killer." Ray's jaw dropped. "You're Anna, his favorite daughter." She smiled. "Angelina Juanita Brady, at your service. Now, let's discuss your case over lunch, shall we?" As they ate at a quiet restaurant, A.J. briefed Ray on his parole conditions. When Ray tried to learn more about her personally, she gently deflected. "Ray, it wouldn't be appropriate to discuss my personal life with a client." "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," Ray blurted. "Those dimples when you smile." A.J. blushed. "Ray, I told you I don't date clients, but thank you. Now, let's get back to your case." "At least tell me about your legal background," Ray pressed. "As your client, don't I have a right to know?" She sighed, smiling. "All right, fine. Law degree on a full scholarship. I've specialized in criminal law for years." They finished lunch, and Ray found himself completely captivated by Anna. "Will I see you again?" he asked hopefully as they prepared to leave. "Next week, to go over some parole paperwork," she replied. "We could have lunch again if you'd like. My treat this time." "Sounds great," Ray grinned. "Remember, it's just business," she said firmly, though she couldn't quite hide her smile. Back at her office, Ray held her hand a moment too long as they said goodbye. He hoped she didn't think he was just some weird ex-con. As he left, he told her how much he was looking forward to next week. Anna's secretary gave Ray a knowing grin as he departed. Most lawyers weren't quite like Anna. For the next 2 Mondays, Ray met with Anna as scheduled. She tried to keep things strictly professional, but Ray sensed a growing connection between them. 1 week later, Anna informed Ray that their business was concluded. "So you're not my lawyer anymore?" "Of course I am. You can always call if you need me." "In that case, Anna, I'm firing you." "What? After everything I've done for you, pro bono no less?" "Yeah," Ray nodded. "You don't date clients, and I want to take you on a real date dinner, dancing the works. I know I'm just an ex-con and a factory worker, but I want to get to know you, and I think you want that too." "Ray, I am attracted to you, but what will people think?" "Who cares what anyone thinks? Give me one date, follow your heart for once." Anna sighed. "God, I know I shouldn't, but Okay, one date. And don't you dare expect to sleep with me. That Saturday, Ray borrowed his sister's car and picked Anna up at her apartment. She looked stunning in a little black dress over wine and a fancy dinner. Ray asked about Anna's past. My parents split up when I was 14, she explained. Dad's been in prison for 14 years now. My siblings and I were raised by various relatives. They still can't forgive Dad for what he did. I'm the one who told him about Mum's affair. Sometimes I wonder if I had just kept my mouth shut. Anna, you're not responsible for your father's actions, Ray said gently. You were just a kid trying to do the right thing. Anna nodded, blinking back tears. After Dad went to prison, I became determined to become a lawyer. I thought maybe I could help reduce his sentence. That's why I chose criminal law, turns out. There wasn't much wiggle room in his case. He was a pretty sharp lawyer himself back in the day. He always said he was proud of me for following in his footsteps, even if my hands were tied when it came to his case. Have you ever been married before, or is that off limits too? Anna smiled. Both. It was brief, and it's none of your business, Ray. Can we save the heavy stuff for another time? I'm enjoying our evening. Care to dance? I've got 2 left feet, Ray admitted, but I'll take any excuse to hold you close. They swayed to a few slow songs, Ray breathing in Anna's scent and daring to kiss her hair. Ray, I don't date much, Anna confessed. My social circle has left me wary of most men. If your dad hadn't sent you my way, I probably wouldn't be here right now. Remind me to send him an extra pack of smokes, Ray joked. Anna, you're the best thing that's come my way in a long time. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust. If I ever overstep, just say the word. At her door that night, they shared a kiss that left Anna staring at Ray in wonder. She leaned in for another. Can I come in? Not tonight, Ray, it's too soon. Call me on Thursday about next Saturday. Ray left a very happy man. They met the next 2 Saturdays as well. Anna began to open up more. Ray, if we're going to keep seeing each other, you should know more about my past, she said one night. I was married in college, got pregnant, and rushed to the altar. We were way too young. I miscarried and we divorced soon after. I kept Brady as my last name to distance myself from my father's name. Anna, would you like to join our family barbecue next Saturday, he asked. Meet my sister and the kids. Anna hesitated, knowing it was a big step. Then she kissed Ray deeply for the first time. Okay, Ray, she smiled. Count me in. What can I bring? Ray still saw his kids every weekend. They told him their mum was dating a teacher named Pat. Ray was wary at first, but the kids seemed to like Pat and his young daughter. When Ray asked Pamela about it, she said, I'm really trying to turn my life around. Ray, Pat's a good guy. He knows all about you and respects that you're their father. Ray nodded. Pamela, your lies ruined us. If you care about this man, be honest with him. Don't mess it up like you did with us. Ray found a small apartment about a mile from Pamela and the kids. It had 2 bedrooms, so the kids could stay over on weekends. He still visited Amy's place often for meals and to see the family. One morning, as Ray made French toast, he turned to Anna and asked, Will you marry me? Tears filled her eyes. What's wrong? He asked. I'm just thinking about my dad, she explained. He won't be able to walk me down the aisle. When Anna visited Ray at work a few days later, his smile faded when he saw her tears. What's wrong? He asked, concerned. I called the prison, she said softly. My dad can't leave to attend our wedding. His life sentence means just that. It's out of my hands, I'm sorry. Anna, Ray said, pulling her close as she cried. Her father's cancer had returned, giving him only months to live. Ray felt helpless, wondering why life was so cruel to this good person. Anna, I've been buying your dad cigarettes, Ray confessed. It was our deal, it's okay, Ray. He trades them for other things. You didn't cause this, she assured him. Ray had an idea but kept quiet, not wanting to raise false hope. After saying goodbye to Anna, he went straight to the prison, determined to speak with Killer and the warden. Killer smiled when he saw Ray. Take care of my girl, son. She deserves better than an old con like me. Ray pitched his plan. Killer hesitated but agreed if Ray could convince the warden. The warden was skeptical. You want to get married in prison just so her father can attend? Yes, Sir, Ray replied. She hasn't seen him in 14 years. He's dying. We only need the chapel for an hour. The warden relented, setting strict conditions. Ray raced back to tell Killer, who gave him a bank account number for Anna. At Anna's office, Ray broke the news. How about getting married in prison? Her tears of joy said it all. God, I love you, Ray. They visited the bank where Anna accessed a safety deposit box. Inside was a letter from her father, her mother's engagement ring, and bonds to pay for the wedding. It was a bittersweet moment.